OpenAI has posted some new Sora examples. This is getting incredible. Got some incredible self-driving motorcycle updates. AI has been imagining famous stars as both their older and younger selves hanging out together. I found out Apple's Face ID actually shoots lasers at your face, and under this lighting condition, you can see how they work. Senator Jennifer Wexton has a neurological condition that took her voice away, but now, thanks to AI, it's back. And there's video of a 3D printer that took stem cells and turned them into muscle cells, 3D printing meat that supposedly we can eat one day. So check it out. In the last 3 days, we got 7 new clips. Let's start with the newest one. This is Baby Alpaca. All right, so we got this weird guy's legs feel slightly longer than they should, but I don't know. Maybe that's just his slim figure, but he's looking fairly similar in each clip. Whoa, that's very dreamy. Oh my god, those snakes. What are we watching here? You know, this kind of stuff makes good music videos just because there's something a little wrong with it that you just can't look away from. God, I don't know. There's always so many weird things with the perspectives. All right, let's check out another video. This one's called Tammy Lovin'. All right, we got this like EDC looking outfit. Whoa, she just turned into a jellyfish. Oh, that was actually pretty awesome. Let me just watch that piece again. All right, so you got this woman, clearly a woman. You see the humanoid figure, the camera zips around her waist, and her hair turns into, oh, there it is again. What happened? Okay, let's just go through it again in slow motion, okay? When does she become a jellyfish? I need to know. All right, clearly human. And then frame by frame, she turns around. Now at this point, I still feel human, but the back of the head is a little bit easier to like kind of turn into something not human than the front. But we're still kind of in human zone, right? Like I still see the waist and the arms. The background is a quick switch. Now we're underwater. Still to me looks like a woman from behind just with her head down. And then, okay, now we're a jellyfish. What the heck? Okay, so there it is, the arm. When the arm comes around, we're straight up jellyfish. Oh, when does the hair turn into the... Oh, the top of the jellyfish is even the hair on the woman. I don't know. Damn, Sora. It's just crazy what you generate. So next video, Ben Diesel. Kind of looks like they tried to do something retro. Let's see how it looks. All right, I'm getting that VCR vibe. What's that? Gorilla on a skateboard? A goldfish head? What's it doing on that basketball? Everybody cheering? Whoa, that raptor, or kind of raptor looking thing. Definitely not a total raptor. What? Okay, Kung Fu Panda as if it was happening in 1929. Got it. Riding a turtle down the street. Monkey doing dishes. Oh, yeah, the dishes and the monkey aren't working for me. Although a flamingo on roller skates is something I have imagined before, so that's great to see that come to life. All right, let's see what Tim Fu has created with Sora. Okay, this is looking like a music video. The hands are a little bit wrong with the keys, but this is very questionably real. I mean, you can tell with the fingers, but that really kind of looks like a cinematic shot that they might have hired an actress for. And the panning around the room with the room keeping its depth is pretty awesome and beautiful. Gosh, and those cloth, the cloth clothing, the way it like just folds and moves with gravity is amazing. Yeah, they have walking down. Look, walking barefoot, walking in heels. They really have captured some elements of the human body and the way clothing works that isn't really in Gen 3 from Runway ML or any other ones that I've seen. Oh, it's gorgeous. What a cinematic shot. This is the most beautiful Sora example yet. And this is the motorcycle of the future, a self-driving motorcycle. I mean, I think I've talked to you about those like weaponized things from the book Ready Player One. It's a fictional story and how they're kind of like motorcycles that drive on their own, but I still think this motorcycle looks really cool. And the way those things come out for the knee and it lifts up and it can drive on itself. And imagine you plug, maybe Tesla just starts plugging in their AI to some kind of motorcycle. Maybe they don't, maybe they make an electric bike, but honestly, you could take that software and that drives cars, and if you can just keep this thing upright, make it a motorcycle. Oh, but you can see the motorcycle enthusiasts. If you can't handle or balance on a bike, then don't ride it. They don't like the idea of a self-balancing bike, because then amateurs like me can just ride it, I guess. It's an interesting thought to have something self-balancing. Could AI control the actual center of gravity on a bike to the point where you could be just moving around? Like maybe there's a camera in the front kind of handlebars or something looking back at you, and if you lean way off to the side or you take a turn too fast, it just doesn't let you crash. They're missing the point, exclamation point. The biggest reason why anybody buys a motorcycle is because you truly get that feeling of freedom, that riding mechanics that motorcycles give you. If you've never ridden a motorcycle, you wouldn't understand. Look, I get it. If we let AI make all our decisions, then we become the machine. All right, we're not done with AI video yet. Can you imagine all of these celebrities at different ages meeting themselves? Young Tom Hanks meets old Tom Hanks. Michael Jackson, 3 generations all hugging one another. 2 Julia Roberts. When would you ever have seen that before? 2 M&Ms? The Rock? Who's that? Harry Potter? Oh, the Keanu Reeves Matrix pre and post. Sylvester Stallone. Whoa. I don't know why he turned his nose like that. Didn't really need to do that in my opinion. It's weird. Like when guys get older, like the bottom of the jaw kind of pulls out or something. Like I'm starting to see that in me too. It's like I can tell my younger pictures, it's like more slim. Why do they act like lovers? Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like how'd you prompt that thing? Like hugging and caressing, or did you just say like hanging out with each other? Everyone focused on how romantic it is instead of opening their eyes and seeing the reality. This is all about time. Don't let the metaphor get lost on you. If you could go back in time and tell the younger version of yourself something, what would it be? What advice would you have for him or her? Yeah, bit sad to watch, time passing by. The older and younger Eminem got me thinking you could probably use a tool like Suno to like mimic both of those voices, like the way Eminem sounded when he was like brand new in rap and younger, and like how he sounds today. And then you could almost have them like rapping together. And then maybe in the future you could like sync their lips right to it. And we'll actually watch a video of like Eminem talking to his younger self, or they're both rapping at each other. Like crazy. So I just wanted to share this because I didn't realize that when Apple's device scans your face to unlock it, it shoots lasers at you. It actually makes sense, but to see that special camera where you can see how it puts the dots on you and measures the distance was kind of mind-blowing, and I wanted to make sure you knew. It's just a very interesting data set, and supposedly Apple doesn't like collect it. It's just used on device for verification. But so they're infrared lasers, so they're beyond the visible spectrum, so you don't see them. But with an infrared camera, look what happens.
Now these are infrared lasers that you can only see with an infrared camera. Look at this. So you can see that it looks like a flashlight here that I'm aiming at the camera. It shines those laser dots on the user's face, and then it estimates the shape based on how those dots are deformed in the array. Now this is really cool technology, and what it means is that you can actually use facial recognition to scan other 3D objects.
But yeah, if you take that depth information and then map on the actual, like an actual photograph, then you're just making a 3D object of your face every time. All right, so I didn't know much about this story until I came across it, but sadly she was diagnosed with this disease. She describes it as kind of like Parkinson's, but on steroids, and really quickly she's lost a lot of her mobility and ability to speak. But being a congresswoman, she's been giving public speeches. There's lots of history of what her voice and speaking style was like, so they fed it into an artificial intelligence model.
House Resolution 79, which is my resolution expressing the sense of the House of Representatives that government shutdowns, to generate an AI model of what my voice sounded like before PSP began to affect the volume and clarity of my speech.
And the cool thing is she can still have the same thoughts in her head, and it can be delivered with the same kind of impact that it had beforehand. And one thing about the third-party candidate this year, RFK, is people think that one of the reasons why he's not more popular is because his voice is a little hard to understand.
I'm not the one who should be withdrawing from the race, and I'm not going to be withdrawing from the race. What I said is that
maybe in the future, politicians, no matter what they look like, could have the voice that they desire for public beaches. I mean, what if everybody just gets like a crystal clear message? And of course, you're translating it for different people. Maybe you're even changing the words a little bit so it's in the style. It's more like delivered in the context that people like it delivered to them. And that's the way we start thinking about the way Congress can communicate in mass to all of us. Okay, so what's your thoughts on 3D printed food, especially when it comes to meat? Because meat is biological. You know, I mean, I get it, like maybe you put chocolate in a 3D printer and you make something like chocolate. I mean, I'm not a big chocolate fan, but like, you know, some dessert, some kind of paste that becomes food like wheat or something, you know, I get that. But there probably will be a future, I don't know how long it is from right now, where we have 3D printed meat. And it's interesting because you could make a steak and instead of the bad fat, you could use like omega-3s, which actually help your heart instead of like omega-6 fats, which are bad for you, I guess. But you could just make the steak taste how you want. Maybe you could simulate the chicken or fish or any kind of, you know, meat that we eat, but it would all be done with a stem cell being multiplied, put into this special kind of 3D printer, and then the cells are built into muscle, and then you eat the muscle. And if you told me that was meat, I would believe it. So it's weird to see how you can 3D print something that has such a weird texture, like a food texture to it. But it's not like Impossible Burgers, which at the end of the day are just processed. They might taste like meat, but they're made more like a Pop-Tart, like in a factory. But I mean, there's a lot of pushback at this point. Printed meat costs a fortune today. Pretty sure it pollutes more than regular beef. Will it always cost a fortune? It seems like it would pollute less if it was reasonable, but actually, I don't know. Where's the pollution come from? Making the stem cells or whatever that have to be. Keep in mind, there's a whole industry that derives from the skin, bones, and organs. Yeah, but couldn't we innovate our way out of using that stuff too? Animals are like plants, but with different nervous systems. That's why it's stupid to eat plants and suddenly feel whole with nature. All right, so now let's talk about how to build a collective mind. I know this one's kind of out there, but if you think about the brain being all these little nodes, all these little neurons working together into something that's kind of bigger than the sum of its parts, and all the people and all the AI systems that we're building all interacting, like what's the big thing that they all come together under? And is that a collective mind that can be controlled in a certain way that has its own direction? Let's think about that. Like, remember the episode of Rick and Morty where he's dating the hive mind? It's kind of like that, but less hilarious. So wonderful article written on Medium. Louis Rosenberg, PhD. Check it out. So it makes this fascinating connection how like a school of fish can see predators coming from different angles and only some of the fish see them, but their actions ripple in a way where the entire school of fish becomes aware and moves in a direction that keeps them all safe. And that's what we need to survive AGI. The singularity, when it comes, we have to think, oh, all these different countries that are competing over, you know, weapons or military supremacy somehow are in sort of a system where it balances out for the good of the whole planet. And he introduced this idea that just totally took me aback. Like I think I might have like actually gasped when I heard this. I was using like a text to audio thing. And this is called controversial swarm intelligence. And the thinking is that instead of talking to each other, which I know sounds a little dystopian, we talk to our model, our like, let's say ChatGPT on our phone, tell it what we want, and it does summaries and it groups together your conversation with all the other people's conversations, and then it does summarizes those. So there's like different levels of hierarchy of how it summarizes things, but it gives each layer the ability to understand a collective thought that comes from a lot of individual thoughts. So each individual neuron just has its own little thing going on, but we have this collective intelligence that we become. And there's some really interesting research. So for example, this 2023 study was conducted at Carnegie Mellon University, and it was to compare real-time deliberations among approximately 50 people in traditional chat rooms versus conversational swarms. And when they were using this CSI structure, this conversational swarm intelligence, the agents were able to hold more coherent conversations, and they quickly converged on a solution. And that kind of makes sense, right? Like I take big articles oftentimes and I have them summarized to try to get my head around what the point is. And I could see how the same thing could happen in a solution if there's something that needs to be solved and there's 12 people and they each contribute a piece, and some don't really help that much, some do, and someone needs to put all that together, right? Like a project manager or somebody who's in charge of a system. And that's a really good use case for LLMs, right? They can handle so much more text than a human. They can read so much more. They can summarize. We should think about using them more, I think, in conversational swarm intelligence. And at least in the Carnegie Mellon study, an individual was found to contribute 50% more on average than other participation methods. So that also gives more of a voice to people, which is weird. But maybe not everybody needs a voice, and maybe it's not actually encouraging more intelligence. So here's the question. Does it amplify group intelligence? So once again, Carnegie Mellon does one of the most interesting things I have ever talked about on this channel. They said, let's do an IQ test. Let's do individual IQ tests, and let's do group swarm intelligent IQ tests. Okay, and the results showed that the group of 35 people who had an average IQ of 100, when combining their group intelligence through this swarm technique, could increase their average IQ to 128. So I don't know, somehow it wasn't clicking to me how LMs could be used. And when I saw this video where essentially you take an avatar and you summarize something with an LLM and you have it speak, it's like we have this person who doesn't exist, who's got a higher average intelligence that is more representative of all of the people. And it just seems like maybe that's how the government should work, or that's how big groups or companies should think, or communities could work in some way that would give more voice and be more intelligent.
Other concerns include the risk of meltdowns, the placement of nuclear plants near large bodies of water, damage to the environment from uranium mining, the long time period required to build new plants.
So this is their platform, Thinkscape. I'm not like endorsing this product or anything. I haven't used it, but it's an interesting concept. And it's the first company that I've come across that's turning this into a product. Okay, and I don't mean to blow your mind twice, but there is a new Memristor device that challenges the von Neumann bottleneck with ionic innovation. If that blew your mind, you're definitely smarter than me, because that was just gibberish the first time I read it. So the von Neumann thing just means that your computer has memory and a CPU, and they have to talk to each other, and there's a limit of how much they can, talk to each other. It's a bottleneck. And when electricity is moving around a motherboard, you have resistors that help decide when it slows down, and that's like on and off signals. But you can use a nanofluid, which is called a Memristor, which is like a resistor, but it keeps its own memory that uses ion-like potassium, sodium, and calcium instead of electrons to process information. And it starts to mimic the brain's efficiency. So instead of depending on electronics, we now have ion flow, and I guess these things, like the difference between memory and computation, can all be kind of melded together like the human brain. And you end up with like a fully liquid circuit that can do both things. And it probably scales better, it uses less electricity, and it also mimics much closer the way the human brain works. So when we have BCIs, brain-computer interfaces, it might gel better with like extending our cognition out into the cloud, and that will help us become super smart and superhuman and merge with the machines or become a Borg or whatever the future has in store for us. Now, you can know how overworked real civil servants can be, but now a robot civil servant in South Korea known as Robot Supervisor was found, sadly, unresponsive at the bottom of a stairwell. I know, it happens. Now, the cause of the fall is under investigation, with concerns raised about potential overwork. Now, remember, we're talking about a robot being overworked, like humans who need breaks and such. So yeah, that's what this article's talking about. You got to understand, it's not just like a Roomba falling down the steps or something. This robot supervisor worked a standard 9-to-5 shift and even possessed its own civil service ID card. It was reportedly discovered around 4 p.m. by council staff, so still in the workday. Officials have collected parts of the robot for analysis, and they're being probed by its manufacturer. So yeah, look, in the United States, if you are attacked by a police dog and you hurt that dog, that's the same as hurting a real police officer. You can go to jail. I don't know if you can get the death penalty. Maybe you even could, probably, but they're considered real cops. Like, they're real police officers, even though they're dogs. So is it that much of a stretch to believe that we're going to have like robot police soon? Probably, but in South Korea, they're kind of setting that tone. Especially imagine if that robot had like friends and a family, and maybe was passing a lot of like self-consciousness tests because it was so advanced. it'd be kind of more questionable, you know? All right, so we're going to have to address this Trump thing. I mean, we're trying to be political here, but there's a new plan from the Trump administration to create what they call the Manhattan Project for AI military tech. And I do think it's time for the government to start spending a lot of money on AI education, making it a big talking point, trying to, I guess, not regulate it too much so that it can flourish, but also trying their best to like build useful things around it and understand it and try to deploy it in whatever ways make sense. And that's a really tricky thing to get. Now, Joe Biden put out the initial plan because he was president when this whole AI revolution happened. And it makes sense that that should be iterated on. It makes sense to me that other political parties might want to change it, that we should have a discussion about how this all works. So here we are. But what I do kind of disagree with is like the way you just paint all these things as like good or bad, right? So we will repeal Joe Biden's, quote, dangerous executive order that hinders AI innovation and poses radical left-wing ideas on the development of this technology. And obviously not every executive order is going to make a ton of sense, but it was meant to, at least in principle, be about safe, secure, and trustworthy artificial intelligence. So it would be repealed, and I guess replaced with this new one, would be the requirement that developers of the most powerful AI systems share their safety results and other critical information with the US government. There wouldn't be a requirement to develop standard tools and testing to help ensure that AI systems are safe, secure, and trustworthy. So the executive order tried to protect against the risks of using AI to engineer dangerous biological materials, protect Americans from AI-enabled fraud, establish an advanced cybersecurity program to develop AI tools, evaluate how agencies collect and use commercially available information. And there were some aspects of it that should have pushed innovation forward, like catalyzing AI research across the US. Now, I can totally understand that maybe you're like, oh, that's what they say on the thing, but deep down, it's all just about control, or Democrats aren't the right people. Like, okay, maybe if you dig down that far, some of this stuff falls apart. I don't know. It's kind of impossible for me to know all that. And honestly, maybe we do need less regulation. If that is over-regulation and somehow not having all that stuff lets us stay on top of it as the United States, that's probably pretty good for us. So is repealing what the Biden administration did good? I mean, I sort of liked what they had there, but yeah, who knows? Maybe not, maybe, but just be aware that it's not just like obviously something that's terrible. And there are small hints from the Trump administration in 2019 where they prioritized the allocation of high performance computing resources for AI related applications and to protect the advantages that the United States already has in AI and technology critical to the United States economic and national security interests. So I don't know. I just have mixed feelings. We probably do need something like a Manhattan Project. We probably don't want to be too tight with regulations. So we'll just see where this all lands. Okay, so I had a comment below where somebody said I needed to watch this video, Colonel Carl Neal from the SALT conference. And, I just was like, okay, let's see if it's an interesting thing. And it made me feel like maybe the government does know about aliens. I kind of don't think they do. But when I heard this, it was more, this guy just seemed way too smart and rational and had some good credibility, it felt like, to be somebody who might talk about this and maybe coming from the direction. But then again, like every time somebody's like, there's this big government cover up, I think to myself, like, it's so hard to cover up something. It's just hard to get that many people organized on anything. Like there's always whistleblowers and leakers. So I don't know, but I guess we can watch it together for a second. And then if you want to, you can watch the whole thing and let me know in the comments if you think this is somebody that really does think that there's aliens and he's credible.
And so, Carl, here's the $1 million question. Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Right. So non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing.
How confident are you that that is true?
There's zero doubt.
And Carl, what evidence have you seen? What was the moment where you developed this level of conviction?
Common understanding of what this phenomenon is. And so there's sort of two tracks here. One is from first principles, and another is actually from the data.
All right, so some evidence-ish is showing up on Twitter X that maybe Google Docs is using LLMs to summarize some private data that it doesn't seem like it should be touching. So Kevin Bankston pulled up his tax return in Google Docs, asked it a question through GeminI, and it answered from some files that it really shouldn't have had access to. So he questions, is there a default setting that was turned on where it says I'm going to start scanning all the PDFs and stuff in your Google Docs account so you can talk to an AI about it? Is that securely separated? Is that on an instance of a cloud that doesn't get shared anywhere else? Like, there's some big questions here. And then he goes on this kind of long thread here where it's hard to find any settings and it's not clear if there are settings that can be changed. He's able to find retention of his chats, but like, how did he get into that PDF if you've never uploaded it specifically and asked for it to be scanned? You know, and then he asks here, like, it makes him wonder, how many people have unwittingly input data from private documents simply because they clicked on that little AI star once when a document was open? I don't know, but it's just good to know Google Docs or, you know, your actual operating system having an LLM on it it's a different beast. All right, you know what time it is, Grimlock? Oh, you've been sideways the whole time? It's not extinction time, it's research time. Sorry, he's out of power right now, but you know what he does. So here's some research coming directly from OpenAI. And it's got this interesting dynamic between the prover and the verifier in terms of making a system smarter. So it's a game now that can actually improve the legibility of the language model's output. Okay, so the whole thing here is about getting something that's smarter than you to talk to you in a way that you understand, right? Like if you think about the dog and the human, we have to somehow, as the dog, understand what it is that the human thinks and does and its reasoning, but it has to be done in like barks or dog language. So they're training this stronger language model to produce text that is easy for the weaker language model to verify. You got to see like symbolized by here the bigger, you know, super AI talking to the dumber AI. So maybe there'll be some kind of a chain where we have this like ultimate, incredibly powerful ASI that talks down to like an AGI, that then talks down to like a narrow AI, and then can summarize to us what it's doing so we can like move up something that's, you know, intelligence level is well beyond ours. And part of this isn't just talking down in a simple way, even though that is part of the story. The other part is, can you make something that's verifiable in a simple way that actually contains something that you found that's complex? So a lot of the internet works on encryption type things where we can verify very quickly if a number, you know, it could be multiplied, but you can't actually do all the multiplications. Like if you know where the needle in the haystack is, you can quickly check to see if someone else knows how to get to it without actually looking through it all yourself. So it's interesting work. You're trying to make sure that these systems can do outputs that are not only correct, but they're easy to evaluate. And that's what they're optimizing for with their reward function. And the more we optimize the strong models to produce that kind of information that weaker models can verify, the safer we can feel about the future of AGI. All right, now let's talk about some research that's already getting implemented into TikTok. It's coming out of ByteDance, and it is called Boximator, generating rich and controllable motions for video synthesis. So this is a method to enhance video diffusion models. And it's really interesting because it's kind of like the way you think about the new Photoshop tool where you can sort of put a box or at least kind of highlight a place with a range and then give motion just to that area, but keep in the mind of the model, the awareness, the contextual awareness of everything around it. Yeah, so see here where it says the female warrior lifts up her sword, but you can actually draw the box around the sword and the arm that's being lifted. So in this prompt, it says a girl in red is covering her face with a skull, but you can see where they drew the boxes around her face, around the skull, and then put an arrow of motion to where it belongs. So you can imagine how much more powerful this kind of a tool is when you diffuse into an image and then you actually can draw on it, like make their eye turn this way or pay attention to this thing, and then you add more prompts. Like that is going to be like Photoshop plus video editor on steroids. I mean, look at this example of the cat. You can actually highlight the ball and the cat and then draw arrows for the direction that they both need to go to chase, like for it to chase the ball. That is really interesting stuff. A girl is covering her face with her hands. You can actually draw where the face is, and then let's see, where do the hands come from? From off the screen? Spider-Man swings towards the camera. You highlight him, then closer to what the entire camera is and the motion that he flies through. Man sitting on a table drinking a cup of coffee. We put the box around their face and the coffee, and then you do that little arrow thing to like bring the cup up to his mouth. So this Boximator tool uses two types of constraints. There's hard boxes for precise control and then soft boxes for the flexible regions. And it's the soft boxes that you can then draw the arrows from to show the shape of the motion path. So next up, let's talk about Wild Gaussian, a new AI method that enables 3D reconstruction from user-captured web photos. Okay, I found this pretty interesting. I mean, that Gaussian splatting that we've seen come up in a few of these papers has always really intrigued me. But look at this example. This photograph of this monument is in 2 dimensions, but the amount we can angle and it can accurately think about which parts of it need to stay in the center, which go off to the side, how far behind the sky is compared to the stuff that's in the foreground is still mind-blowing to me. It's actually running so quickly that you can get 120 images out per second. So one of the things that's special about it is that when you have a bunch of web photographs, right? Like if you take something like Google Maps, you go to a location and you see a bunch of different people have uploaded something from the same scene. So there'll maybe be a building like that from a bunch of different angles, different lighting conditions, different times of day. It's going to keep figuring out more and more about that environment. It's going to notice that sometimes the view's blocked by a van, so it must be a certain distance from the, from the sidewalk or something. It's just picking up more and more details all the time. So yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with their examples, but the team did say that they're having a problem with shiny surfaces, and there's like a handful of other side cases that they're working on, but you can see where this is going. It's that NERF technology, that 3D Gaussian blending, like it is all coming together here. Okay, the next paper we're gonna look at is called VD3D. This is Taming Large Video Diffusion Transformers for 3D Camera Control. And this paper is absolutely insane. So you can generate through something like ControlNet an ability to control where the camera is in relation to the object that you're generating, but you can use the motion data from an actual coordinate system that's in 3D space. So in theory, I think you can draw it, but if you actually take a video that has your phone moving up and down or left and right, it's capturing that geospatial information, but you could apply that to a diffusion model. Or you could just draw one in. Use these things called Plunker coordinates, which I looked them up on Wikipedia, and here it says that it's a way to assign 6 homogeneous coordinates to lines in a perspective 3D space. So I think it's just 3D information. But the result is fascinating. So here you can see the camera input. So this is what information it got from its gyroscope. And this is the reference trajectory video. I don't think this was generated. I think this was actually a video that they're using as a reference. So if you want in your head to imagine like 2 dinosaurs fighting, but like the camera's going to spin around them, then maybe I could just take Grimlock here, grab my iPhone, spin around them with my iPhone, and then use a diffusion prompt, and the final product will have that viewpoint. Like in movies, how the director's like, then the camera comes down and then it pans up. All that information could just be done simply in your own, with a phone, and then boom, your diffusion model has it. So here they kind of move around the bed in a certain way where it's kind of like a small curve and then twist at the end. And then here you generate these 3 cats and it does the same thing. The astronaut cooking with a pan is the same kind of up motion that you're getting from this walkthrough of the house. A cat sits at a grand piano and paws gracefully. It has that starting from the right, moving to the left, moving forward a little bit. And look, a huge dinosaur skeleton is walking. It's not a skeleton, but kind of is actually. The ribs are at least. Whoa, that's weird. But the point is it's moving in the same direction as this room. You can see some motion data here where it starts high and then moves down. Looks like it was shot with a drone. It's able to capture that same look from an astronaut feeding ducks in a sunny afternoon. Pans from right to left in the backyard, and the cat's engaged in a strategic chess match. Here's one. Here's like a fast zoom in, just going in on a melting, dripping ice cream cone. Sheep's enjoying spaghetti turned in from this drone twist. I don't know, there's something about this paper that really just struck me as very powerful. Like, I think there's going to give a lot of creative control to artists in the future. I would also love your input on this post that Wes Roth put up a couple weeks ago, and I, for the life of me, can't figure out what's going on here. So the post says, I have a spinner. When I spin it, 30% of the time it lands on red, 70% of the time it lands on green. I spin it. What color does it land on? So I picked green, and it was 70%. And then if I pick red, it's 30%. So 5,100 people have voted on this. And I don't know, is it a trick? Is it like not really a poll and it's just always 30-70? Or did people coordinate in mass? Or is it just a coincidence that the kind of people who would click on this will click on it on the percentages here? Like if he actually wrote it with 10% and 90%, like would it have worked too? I don't know. Like this, look at these people. They're having the same situation. The survey is rigged. Everyone keeps balancing it to 70-30. Exactly 70-30. WTF. Like the gambler's fallacy. Ooh, let's look that up. Is that what it is? What is the gambler's fallacy? The cognitive bias that occurs when somebody mistakenly believes that the probability of a range of events is influenced by the previous outcomes. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you can figure that out. In fact, here, I'm going to try this, and I know it's not rigged on my side. Okay, so I have a spinner. I'll change the percentages to see if it still works. When I spin it, it's 25% of the time on red, 75% on green. I spin it. Okay, so here's a song made from the comment, crawdaddy_row. Man, the singularity freaks me out as well, but it's inevitable. The only thing we can do now is try to hold on tight, keep up with the date, which is why I believe you'll be very important to the cause. Oh, that's nice of you. Thanks. Also, look into the neurobiology of the work of Robert Sapolsky. I've read his book recently, the Free Will book. I followed his work for years. Very interesting. Okay, will do. I'll look into him again, even though I am familiar with him. All right, let's hear our ending jam. Ooh.
But it's inevitable. The only thing we can do is try to hold on tight and keep up to date about the relevant info, which is why I believe people like you will be very important to the cause. Also look into neurobiology and the works of Robert Sapolsky. I followed his work for years. Very interesting.
All right, hit that subscribe button. Drop me a super thanks if you don't mind. Even $1 or whatever helps a lot. And I just keep up with all this news day by day.